Approach check. Check for damage and condition of all lights and lenses, not cracked, correct color, and illuminated. 4 ways, cab ID, and turn signals, reflectors and turn signals. License plate is mounted securely. No leaking fluids such as diesel, oil, coolant, or other power steering fluids. Muffler is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. No running soot marks indicating leaks, and the clamps are in place and tight. Bi-directional triangles are mounted securely with nuts and bolts in the box. There are 3 of them. Self-resetting circuit breakers are located in the dash. Windshield washer fluid mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the body. Fluid is at the proper level and there are no leaks. Power steering pump is at the correct level and clamps are in place and tight. Power steering pump is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the engine. There are no leaks, and mounted to the engine is gear driven and there are no leaks. Air compressor is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the engine. It is gear driven. Here no leaks, the lines are secure in metal. Coolant is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the body. Is at the proper level. If I cannot see, I would open the cap once cool and put my finger in the check. Clamps are in place and tight. Coolant lines, no leaks, no cuts or frays, and no exposed cords of fabric. Check the engine oil. If it was low, I added 1 gallon increments. My water pump is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the engine. It is belt driven. There are no leaks. Fan bell is not worn, cracked, cut, or frayed. No more than 1/2 inch or 3/4 inches of play. My alternator is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the engine. It is belt driven. Wires are not frayed, corroded, or cracked. My engine filters are mounted securely to my oil filters are mounted securely to the engine. They're not dented or leaking. My steering shaft is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the U-joint. It runs straight and true, is not loose or worn. Power steering gearbox is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. It's not dented or leaking, and the clamps are in place and tight. Pitman, arm, and drag link are mounted securely with nuts and bolts. They run straight and true, and the cotter pin is in place. My spring hanger and shackle is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. It is not, bushings are in place. It is not cracked or broken. My leaf springs are mounted securely with nuts and bolts and U-bolts to the axle. Leaves are not broken, cracked, shifted, or missing. My U-bolts are not cracked or broken. My shock is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. Bushings are in place. It's not leaking or dented. My brake lines are mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. Hoses are not leaking. Also no cracks, frays, cuts, or exposed cords or fabric. My brake chamber is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the hub assembly. It is not dented or leaking. My push rod is mounted securely with clips, clevis, and pin to the slack adjuster. It runs straight and true, and cotter pin is in place. My slack adjuster is mounted securely. To check, I would check the wheels, release the brakes if it pulls more than 1 inch, needs adjustment. With brakes applied, must not be more than 90 degrees. Inner oil seal, there's no spray patterns or puddling indicating leaks. Brake lining is mounted securely with clips and springs. It is not worn dangerously thin, and there's no grease, oil, or other contaminants on it. My brake drums are mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the hub assembly. It's not dented or leaking. My tread, this is the primary tire, it's not less than 4/32, it's not unevenly worn, there's no cuts, exposed cords or fabrics. This is not a retread. Inner and outer sidewalls, there's no cuts or bulges. Inner and outer rims are mounted securely with lug nuts, no bends, breaks, or non-factory welds. Lug nuts. My valve stem is centered, made of metal with a metal valve cap. There are no leaks. To check, I would check the pressure with a thumper. My lug nuts are no running rust or shiny spot showing looseness, no cracks radiating from bolt holes. My inner oil seal is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the hub assembly. There are no spray pads or puddling indicating leaks. To check the fluid, I would stick, if I couldn't see, I stick my finger into the first joint. Steps are mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame, not broken or missing parts. My handrails are mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the body, not broken or missing parts. And my mirror is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the body, not missing any parts. My door hinge and latch works properly, not missing any parts. My DVIR and stickers are up to date and properly filled out. My fire extinguisher is mounted securely with nuts and bolts and clamps, is in good condition and shows a proper charge with the arrow in the green. My seat is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the body, is in good condition, and is properly adjusted. My seat belt is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the body, is not frayed, and is in good condition. And the latch works securely. My ABS light came on. My air pressure is at 120. I'm now going to complete the brake bleed down test. Once the air pressure stabilizes, I should have no more than 3 psi lost in 1 minute.
Okay, go ahead.
With brakes applied, I should not have more than 4 psi lost in 1 minute.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm now going to complete the brake bleed down, or I'm now going to pump my brakes until my warning light and buzzer come on. Should come on at 60 or have to govern PSI. Came on at 60. I'm going to continue pumping my brakes until my emergency spring brakes apply between 45 and 20. My emergency spring brakes have applied at 40. My oil pressure is at 20. Has to come up within 15 seconds. My dome light and map light are both working. My mirrors are at proper adjustment, no distortions, illegal stickers, or not broken. My driver window, windshield, passenger window, and rear window are all in good condition, and I can see my J hookup light working. My current and valid documents are located in the pouch. My defroster and heater blower are both working. My windshield wipers are in good condition, and wipers washing away the fluid. There's no breaks in the blades. Lights are working on the dash. My voltmeter is charging at 13 to 14. My engine oil is between 20 and 45, and my water is not overheating. My tachometer is working because it is responsive. My air pressure is at 85 to 100, has to bill within 45 seconds. There should be no more than 2 inches of play on a 20-inch wheel, which is not. My horn is working. My hazards are working. Left indicator, right indicator, and brights are all working. My pedals are mounted securely with the pads in place, so there's no obstructions behind them. I am now going to test my brakes. Push yellow in.
Have adequate air pressure?
I do have adequate air pressure. Adequate air pressure between 90 and 120. And they are holding. I'm going to check my parking brake. They are holding. I'm going to check my service brakes, make sure they're not pulling to the left or right. can I have you please check my lights? Cab ID.
Good.
Hazards.
Good.
Left signal.
Good.
Right signal.
Good.
Headlights.
Good.
High beams.
Good.
If I can have you check the tractor and trailer lights. Hazards.
Good. Good.
Right.
Good. Good.
The brakes are applied and I have my keys. My battery is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. It's not showing excessive corrosion. The wires are not loose. My left indicator light is mounted securely. Is the proper color amber. My fuel tank is mounted securely with nuts and bolts and clamps to the frame. It's not leaking fluid. And the cap is on tight. My catwalk is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. It's not broken or missing parts. The back of my trailer or tractor is in good condition, not broke or missing parts or damaged. My lines are not chafed, frayed, tangled, or dragging on the catwalk. My clearance light is mounted secure with the proper color amber. The back of my trailer is in good condition, no holes or missing rivets. My VIN tag and highway sticker are both secured or in place. My apron is not worn or damaged. My fifth wheel is mounted securely with bolts and pin to the platform. It is properly greased. I don't see any space in between it. My platform is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. No cracks radiating from bolt holes. My lever is in the locked position. My frame is not broken, cracked, or non-factory welds. And my drive shaft is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the U-joints, runs straight and true, is not dented. My brake hanger, or my spring hanger, is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. It's not cracked or broken, missing parts, and bushings are in place. My leaf springs are mounted securely with nuts and bolts and U-bolts to the axle. It is not broken, cracked, shifted, or missing, and U-bolts are not cracked or broken. My brake lines are mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. It's not leaking, and hoses are not cut, frayed, or have exposed cords of fabric. My brake chamber is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the axle. It is not dented or leaking. My quarter fender is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. It's not broken or missing parts. My push rod is mounted securely with clevis and pin and runs straight and true, and the cotter pin is in place. My slack adjuster is mounted securely. To check, I would chock the wheels. If it pulls more than 1 inch and needs adjustment, with brakes applied, must not be more than 90 degrees. My inner oil seal is mounted with clips and springs. It is not worn dangerously thin, and there's no grease, oil, or other contaminants on it. My brake lining, my brake drums are mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the hub assembly. It is not dented or missing parts. There's no debris between these tires. They are bud wheels, so there's no spacing between the rims. The tread is not less than 2/32. No cuts, frays, or exposed cords of fabric. Inner and outer sidewalls, no bulges or cuts. Inner and outer rim is mounted securely with the lug nuts. No bends, breaks, or non-factory welds. My inner and outer valve stems are centered and made of metal with a metal valve cap. My lug nuts, no running rust or shiny spots showing looseness, no cracks radiating from the bolt holes. My axle seal is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the hub assembly. There's no spray patterns or puddling indicating leaks. My mud flap is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. It's not broken or missing parts. My fifth wheel kingpin is down in the locked position. My kingpin is not broken, cracked, shifted, or missing. My rails are mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame, not cracked or broken. My brake lights, tail lights, and four-ways are mounted securely with the proper color red. My brake light or my reverse lights are mounted securely proper color clear. There's enough space between the rear of my tractor and my landing gear. Trailer is in good condition, struts are in place. My landing gear is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. It's not cracked, broken, shifted, or missing parts, and the foot is in place. Handle is in the locked position. The side of my trailer is no holes or missing rivets. My reflective tape is in place, and my indicator light is mounted securely with the proper color amber. My slider pin is in place and the handle is in the locked position. My spring hanger is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. The leaf springs or bushings are in place. My leaf springs are mounted securely with nuts and bolts and U-bolts to the axle. They're not cracked, broke, shifted, or missing. My U-bolts are not cracked or broken. My torque rod runs straight and true, and bushings are in place. My brake lines are mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. There's no leaks. There's no exposed cores, fabrics, or fabrics. My brake chamber is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the axle. It's not dented or missing parts. Broken, it's not dented or leaking. A push rod is mounted securely with nuts and bolts, clevis and pin to the slack adjuster. Run straight and true, and the cotter pin is in place. My slack adjuster is mounted securely. To check, I would chock the wheels. If it pulls more than 1 inch, needs adjustments. With brakes applied, must not be more than 90 degrees. My inner oil seal is mounted securely, no spray pads or leak. No spray pads indicating leaks. My brake lining is not worn dangerously thin. There's no grease, oil, or other contaminants on it. My brake drum is mounted securely with nuts and bolts. The hub assembly is not broken or dented. Checking for debris between the tires. These are bud wheels, so there should be no space between the rims. Tread is not less than 2/32. Not unevenly worn. There's no exposed cords or fabrics. Inner and outer sidewalls, no cuts or bulges. My inner and outer rims are mounted securely with lug nuts. There's no bends, breaks, or non-factory welds. My lug nuts, there's no cracks radiating from the bolt holes. No shiny spots showing rust or running rust. My inner and outer valve stems are centered, made of metal with a metal valve cap. My axle seal is mounted securely with nuts and bolts. There is no spray pads or puddling indicating leaks. To check the fluid, I would stick my finger into the first joint. I would check the rear axle the same as I did the front axle. My mud flap is mounted securely with nuts and bolts to the frame. It's not broken or missing parts. My marker light is mounted securely with the proper color red. My ABS light is mounted securely with the proper color amber. I would do the right side the same as I did the left side. My 3 indicator lights are mounted securely, proper color red. I have reflective tape in place, a seal all the way around the door. My cables are not frayed or missing. My door latch works properly, and my inner strap is mounted securely. My brake lights, tail lights, and four-ways are mounted securely with the proper color red, and they're working. My bumper is mounted securely with nuts, bolts, and welds. It's not broken or missing. My license plate and license plate light are both functional, mounted securely, and my tags are up to date. I am done.